Okay, I want you to start by visualizing two very specific, very clashing images.
All right, I'm with you.
So on the left side of your mind's eye, picture a gritty leather jacket wearing biker. He's from New York, he's got that street tough swagger.
Uh-huh.
He looks like the kind of guy who handles his business in a bar fight without spilling his drink.
Okay, got it. Classic tough guy.
Now, on the right side, picture a man in like a flowing pink dress.
Oh, okay.
He's wearing this garish, clown-like makeup. His hair is bleached, platinum blonde. He's holding a bouquet of flowers, and he's delicately spraying perfume into the air.
It's the ultimate contrast. I mean, you'd assume we're looking at two completely different performers.
Exactly.
Probably from two different decades or maybe even two different universes.
But we aren't. That is the same man. And essentially, it's the same career, separated by only a few years.
And that's what we're talking about today.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into the life of Keith Adonis Franke, better known to the world as Adrian Adonis.
It really is one of the most drastic character transformations in professional wrestling history. We've got a stack of sources here, articles, match records, biographies, that track his rise from a legitimate athlete to
a tag team specialist.
Right, a tag team specialist, and then finally to one of the most memorable and, I guess, controversial antagonists of the 1980s.
And honestly, it's a story with a devastating ending. We're talking about a guy who went from being the coolest guy in the room to the character everyone paid to hate, only for a tragic accident to cut everything short at age 34.
It's a heavy one, for sure. But to understand the tragedy and to really get why his career matters, you have to understand the raw talent underneath all the costumes.
Yeah.
Because Adrian Adonis wasn't just a guy in a suit playing a part.
So let's start with that raw material. Before the makeup, before the leather jackets, who was Keith Franke? Because looking at the adorable character later in his career, you know, the weight gain, the comedy, you might assume he was just a performance act.
Like a prop comic or something. And that would be a massive mistake. The sources are all very, very clear on this. Keith Franke was a shooter.
Okay, let's unpack that term for anyone who isn't deep in the wrestling lingo. A shooter.
So in wrestling terms, a shooter is a guy who can actually handle himself in a real fight.
For real.
For real. If the choreography stops and things get real, a shooter is the guy who hooks your leg and breaks it. Franke was born in Buffalo, New York in 1953. He was adopted and raised by Kenneth and Hortense Franke, and right from high school, he was a problem on the mat.
A legitimate amateur wrestler.
Oh, yeah. He won the Section 6 amateur wrestling title in 1970 at Kenmore East High School.
So he had that base. That usually translates to a specific style in pro wrestling, right? More technical, more grappling heavy.
He gives you a base of legitimacy, for sure. You know how to leverage your body, how to control weight. But Franke had something else. He had this restless energy. The records show he actually dropped out of high school because he was, quote, bored.
That's a telling detail. It suggests a guy who needs high stimulation. He's not cut out for a 9 to 5.
Exactly. And he didn't just sit around. He briefly played football in the CFL, the Canadian Football League, before pivoting entirely to professional wrestling. He trained under Fred Atkins, who was known for being incredibly tough.
And he made his debut in '74?
Right, originally wrestling under his real name, Keith Franke. But the late 70s is when the persona really starts to click. He adopts the name Adrian Adonis. And this brings us to that first image you mentioned, the biker.
The leather jacket look. This was in the Pacific Northwest Territory.
Yes, Pacific Northwest Wrestling. And this is a crucial piece of the puzzle because of who he meets there.
Oh, yeah.
He forms a tag team with a young, brash Scotsman named Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper, the hot rod, maybe one of the greatest talkers in the history of the business.
They were young, they were tough, and they were building their reputations together, brawling their way through the territory, winning tag titles.
I want to put a pin in that relationship because the dynamic between Adonis and Piper becomes deeply ironic and actually quite tragic later on. But first, Adonis leaves the Northwest.
He heads to the AWA, the American Wrestling Association.
Which was a huge deal back then, Minneapolis-based.
Huge territory. And this is where Adonis finds his niche. He wasn't just a solo guy. He was arguably one of the best tag team partners in the business. He just knew how to work with someone else to make a match great.
And he strikes gold immediately with a partner who needs no introduction.
Jesse, the Body Ventura.
The future governor of Minnesota himself.
In 1979, they formed the East-West Connection.
I've always thought that was such a brilliant, simple marketing hook.
It's Wrestling 101, but just executed perfectly. You have Adonis from New York, the East. You have Ventura build from California, the West.
And they played up this idea of being the coastal elites, right?
Totally. They'd come to the Midwest to look down on the locals.
It just naturally makes people angry. We're better than you because of where we're from.
And it worked like a charm. But here's the interesting insider detail from the files. They were awarded the AWA World Tag Team Championship on July 20, 1980. They didn't actually, win them in the ring.
Wait, really? They were just handed the belts? How does that even happen?
It's a classic bit of wrestling maneuvering. So the champions were Vern Gagne and Mad Dog Vachon. But the storyline explanation was that Vern Gagne was vacationing in Europe and couldn't defend the title.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So the East-West connection got the belt by forfeit.
That generates instant heat from the crowd. You didn't earn it. You were given it on a technicality while the hero was on vacation.
Exactly. It makes the fans desperate to see someone beat them. They held those belts for almost a year, and it established the dynamic. Ventura was the mouthpiece, the charismatic talker. Adonis was the workhorse.
The guy who could go in the ring.
The guy who could go hold for hold with anyone.
So naturally, the big leagues come calling. The World Wrestling Federation.
Yep. Late 1981, they debut in the WWF.
Oh.
And they didn't start at the bottom either. Adonis was immediately challenging Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship and Pedro Morales for the Intercontinental title.
So he was positioned as a top-tier threat right away.
Immediately.
But the East-West connection didn't last in the WWF, did it?
No, and mostly due to physical limitations on Ventura's part. Jesse started suffering from injuries that stopped him from wrestling a full schedule. So the team had to dissolve.
This could have been a career killer for Adonis.
Yeah.
He was the worker of the team, not the star. Without the mouthpiece, he could have just faded away.
But he pivots. And he pivots beautifully. He finds a new partner, Dick Murdoch.
The Texan.
So we go from east-west to...
A north-south connection, of course. Adonis is the north, Murdoch is the south.
You can see the pattern. It's a simple formula. But Adonis made it work because he could adapt his style. With Ventura, he was the flashy brawler. With Murdoch, who was a roughhouse redneck brawler, they became this incredibly gritty, tough team.
But looking at the timeline, this is 1983, 1984. This is where we start to see a physical shift in Adonis, right?
We do. In the Ventura days, Adonis was described as muscular, stocky, well-conditioned. He looked like an athlete.
Yeah.
During the North-South era, he starts gaining a considerable amount of weight.
Now, usually in athletics, gaining significant weight is the beginning of the end. You get slower, you get winded.
And that's the anomaly of Adrian Adonis. Almost every source emphasizes this. Despite the weight gain, he retained incredible agility. He was a big man who could move.
So he could still bump? He could still run the ropes?
Better than men half his size. There are clips of him at 300 pounds doing drop kicks that hit a guy right in the face. It was startling to watch.
Wow.
And the success continued. In April 1984, the North-South Connection defeated Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson to win the WWF World Tag Team Championship.
Just to pause on that, that means Adonis held major world tag titles in the two biggest promotions of the era, with two different partners.
It proves he wasn't just riding Ventura's coattails, he was a legitimate anchor for a tag division.
But then the team splits. Murdoch leaves, and we hit 1985. And this is the moment where the story goes off the rails in the most fascinating way possible.
The birth of adorable Adrian Adonis.
Describe this change for me, because we aren't talking about a haircut and new boots. This is a complete reinvention.
We are talking about a total deconstruction of his previous persona. He stops his weightlifting regimen. He stops tanning. He removes all his body hair. He bleaches his hair platinum blonde.
He intentionally made himself look softer.
He committed to becoming grotesque, in a way. The source describes his appearance during this time as pale, soft, rotund, and flabby. His weight ballooned to over 350 pounds.
That's about 160 kilograms.
Yeah, a huge amount.
Yeah.
And the wardrobe?
Gone was the leather jacket.
In came the pink wrestling trunks, scarves,
Yeah.
leg warmers, dresses, enormous hats.
Yeah.
And just clownish amounts of blue eyeshadow and rouge.
Okay, we have to analyze the why here. Why would a legitimate tough guy, a shooter, do this to himself?
You have to understand the era. This is the mid-'80s, the peak of Hulkamania.
Right.
The heroes are tan, muscular, superhuman patriots. Yeah. To be the ultimate villain, Adonis decided to be the antithesis of that. He wanted to repulse the audience.
He became everything the macho culture of the 80s made fun of.
Precisely. It was a character designed to provoke a visceral reaction. He started carrying a briefcase that said, "Relax with Trudy."
Relax with Trudy. Who is Trudy?
The sources never clarify. It was just this weird, open-ended detail that added to the mystery.
That's hilarious.
It didn't matter. It just added to the persona. And then he started carrying an aerosol can called Fragrance. He would spray it in the ring, to purify the air of the sweaty fans.
It's such classic heel work. You people stink, and I'm fabulous. But there's a specific narrative beat here that I think is brilliant. The transition from the biker to the adorable one wasn't just abrupt.
No.
It involved his old friend Roddy Piper.
Yes. In January 1986, right before the full transformation, there was a segment on Piper's Pit. Adonis actually gives his signature leather jacket to Roddy Piper.
That's the jacket Piper wore for years, right? The iconic one.
The very same. It was a symbolic passing of the torch. He was shedding the tough guy's skin and handing it to his friend, leaving himself free to fully embrace the adorable character.
And embrace it he did. He even got his own talk show,
The Flower Shop.
which replaced Piper's Pit.
Right. Piper went on hiatus in mid-1986 to film a movie. The WWF needed a new interview segment to drive storylines, so they gave it to Adonis. They built this set filled with flower arrangements.
It's visually such a clash. A 350-pound man in a dress interviewing sweaty wrestlers among the hydrangeas.
And he used it to stir the pot. He was the backdrop for some huge moments, like Paul Orndorff turning on Hulk Hogan. But the real friction started when Roddy Piper was ready to come back.
Because now you have two talk shows, two alphas.
And Piper, who was the villain or heel, started getting cheered because Adonis was so hated. Adonis had become such an effective antagonist that he turned Roddy Piper into a good guy by default.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. It culminated in an ambush. Adonis, along with cowboy Bob Orton and Don Morocco, attacked Piper on the flower shop set.
Wait, Bob Orton was involved?
Yes, and get this. Bob Orton started wearing a pink cowboy hat to match Adonis.
That is incredible commitment to the bit. We're a team, so I'm wearing the pink hat.
They beat Piper down, injured his leg, and then the ultimate humiliation, they covered him in lipstick.
So they didn't just beat him up. They tried to turn him into Adonis. They tried to impose that softness on him.
It sparked a war. Piper retaliated a week later by taking a baseball bat to the set of the flower shop. The source notes he completely destroyed it.
Yeah.
It was never rebuilt.
This all leads to WrestleMania III, 1987. The Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 people. And one of the main events is Adrian Adonis versus Roddy Piper.
And the stakes were incredibly high. It was a hair versus hair match.
Which in wrestling culture is huge. Losing your hair is a permanent mark of shame.
Especially for Adonis, whose bleached blonde hair was central to the adorable vanity. It was his crown.
So how did the match go down?
It was a brawl. It wasn't a technical masterpiece. It was a fight. Piper won, but not without controversy. Brutus Beefcake interfered to help Piper. After the match, Beefcake, who was transitioning into a barber character, did the honors. He sheared off Adonis's hair while he was unconscious.
The adorable era ends with him bald, humiliated, and defeated in front of 93,000 people.
It was the climax of the story. And professionally, that was effectively the end of his WWF run. Shortly after WrestleMania III, around May 1987, Adonis was fired.
Why? He was a top draw. He just main evented WrestleMania.
The official reason given was dress code violations.
That sounds vague.
It's likely a catch-all for behavioral issues. The source mentions he had been fired and rehired briefly before this, but this time the bridge was burned.
So there are other things going on.
Rumors of erratic behavior, maybe taking the gimmick too far, or just the lifestyle catching up with him.
So here he is. He's 33 or 34 years old. He's massive, over 350 pounds. He's bald. He's unemployed. What does he do?
He goes back to his roots. He returns to the AWA in 1987. He keeps the adorable gimmick for a bit, managed by a young Paul E. dangerously.
Who modern fans knows Paul Heyman.
A legendary manager even then. They feud with Tommy Rich. But you can see Adonis is trying to reset. The source notes something incredibly impressive. During this time, he lost 100 pounds.
Wow. 100 pounds. That's not just a diet. That's a complete lifestyle overhaul.
It shows his dedication. He was getting ready for a comeback.
Yeah.
He wanted to return to the WWF. By 1988, he's touring with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And in Japan, they treat wrestling very differently. It's a sport. It's presented as legitimate combat.
Exactly. And in Japan, he dropped the adorable gimmick completely. No pink, no flowers, he just wrestled. He teamed with Owen Hart. He reunited with Dick Murdoch.
Back to basics.
They challenged for the IWGP Tag Team Championship. He was showing that underneath all the gimmicks, the shooter was still there.
He was proving he could still go. He was rebuilding his credibility brick by brick. He was showing the world, I'm still Adrian Adonis, the athlete.
Which brings us to July 1988.
And this is the part that is just hard to read.
Yeah. He was working his way back up, taking bookings with smaller promoters to stay active. He was in Newfoundland, Canada.
Way out on the eastern edge of North America. It's rugged terrain.
Lewisport, Newfoundland. July 4th, 1988. Adonis Keith Franke was traveling in a minivan with fellow wrestlers. Dave McKigney, who wrestled as the Canadian Wildman, and a set of twins, William and Victor Arco.
Just 4 guys driving to the next town. That's the life of a wrestler.
It was evening. The sun was setting. Victor Arco was driving. And the police report states that the driver was allegedly blinded by the glare of the setting sun.
And in Newfoundland, the roads aren't empty.
No, a moose wandered onto the road.
A moose, it sounds like a cliche, but hitting a moose is like hitting a brick wall in stilts. It's devastating.
They swerved to avoid it. The van went out of control. It crashed through a guardrail and fell from a bridge into a creek below.
God.
It was catastrophic. Dave McKigney and the driver, Victor Arco, were killed instantly. Keith Franke, Adrian Adonis, survived the initial crash.
He was alive.
He was pulled from the wreckage alive, but suffered severe head injuries. He died hours later in the hospital,
On Independence Day.
leaving behind a wife and 2 daughters. William Arco was the sole survivor, though he had severe leg injuries that ended his career.
It's just the timing. He was 34. He dropped the weight. He was tearing it up into... It feels like we were robbed of a second act.
We absolutely were. You look at the landscape of wrestling in 1989 or 1990, imagine a fit, motivated Adrian Adonis coming back.
He could have feuded with The Ultimate Warrior or Mr. Perfect.
They could have been a main event player for another decade.
When you look back at his legacy now, especially with shows like Dark Side of the Ring covering his career, what stands out? Because for a long time, he was kind of a punchline because of the dress.
I think the appreciation for him has changed. You have to look at the accolades. AWA World Tag Team Champion, WWF World Tag Team Champion.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated ranked him and Murdoch as the number 35 best tag team of the PWI years.
That's significant. But even the negative awards tell a story. The Wrestling Observer newsletter, which is the Bible for smart fans, voted him most embarrassing wrestler in 1986 and gave him worst gimmicks in 86 and 87.
But we have to challenge that, don't we? I mean, if the goal of a wrestling villain is to be embarrassing and hated, didn't he win?
That's the paradox. He drew money. He main evented the biggest show in history up to that point. If everyone hates you and they pay to see you lose, you're doing your job.
He was willing to debase himself to make the hero look good. That's an unselfish performer. He took the worst gimmick and made it the most memorable thing on the show.
He was the ultimate utility player. He could be the cool biker, the technical grappler, or the grotesque villain. He committed 100% to whatever the role demanded.
He didn't have an ego about looking cool. He had an ego about being effective.
That's it exactly.
It's a tragic story, but also a testament to the art of the performance. Adrian Adonis is a reminder that in wrestling, what you see is rarely the whole truth. The man in the dress was one of the toughest men in the locker room.
The duality of man, displayed in the squared circle.
That's a wrap on this deep dive into the life of Adrian Adonis. From the leather jacket to the flower shop and the tragic end in Newfoundland.
A complex legacy for a complex man.
Thanks for listening. We hope this gave you a new perspective on a legend. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.